Hello, and welcome back to the Argyle Finance Leadership Forum. My name is Brittany Sullivan with Argyle, and it's great to have everyone joining us today. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our esteemed speaker. First, a quick reminder to stop by our sponsors' virtual booths at any time during today's event and for the following week. Our partners are committed to providing you with valuable content and a great overall experience. At any time during today's event, you can visit their virtual booths from the main agenda page, which includes complimentary materials, information, and meet and greet opportunities. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the session. Now, without further delay, I would like to introduce our speaker, Nathaniel LaRue, Chief Solutions Ambassador at Oversight. We're excited to have Nathaniel with us for a thought leadership titled Shaping the Financial Landscape with Artificial Intelligence. Welcome, Nathaniel, and over to you.
Thank you, Brittany. Well, welcome everybody, and it's a privilege and an honor to be speaking with you all today. As Brittany mentioned, my name is Nathaniel LaRue, Chief Solutions Ambassador at Oversight. And as we begin this conversation, we are going to be focusing on the impacts of artificial intelligence and how it's really shaping the financial landscape, really revolutionizing risk identification. And within artificial intelligence, there's also the concept of machine learning and how it can help provide precise audit findings. Ultimately, all of these are dramatically improving the compliance, the efficiency, and the loss prevention for organizations. So those are some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. And just as we begin, there were some questions that you may have seen on your screen asking about ChatGPT. So the first question was, have you heard of ChatGPT? And the second question, have you used ChatGPT? When I first asked those questions about, a month or two ago, the results were interesting because approximately 80% of the audience had heard of it, ChatGPT, but only 20% had used. So interestingly, it looks like the increase, we're at about 90% have heard about it, and about 40% have used it. So as I kind of expected, all of this is increasing over time. And certainly as we look at the trends in the industry, you see here KPMG has said that AI will fundamentally transform audit, and PwC has mentioned that they believe that AI is going to be used in all of their work for clients. Pretty broad statements, but the reality is that artificial intelligence is being recognized for its capabilities. So when we think about, well, what is AI? What is artificial intelligence? And at a high level, very simply, it's the ability for machines to do what normally requires human intelligence. But then when we look at the specifics of that, what do you mean by that? Well, data analytics is one area because machines can identify patterns. Like humans are pretty good at identifying patterns, but then when you get to millions of records or transactions, it goes beyond what we can hold in our brain all at once. But artificial intelligence in its specialized way can identify patterns that would be hard for us. Now, where we as people are very good at natural language processing, computers are just catching up in that front. And that's where like ChatGPT, for instance, is getting quite good actually at interpreting text. And that can be used, for instance, for reading contracts and understanding them and being able to query about a massive contract. You could ask it then to give you a summary or give you some recommendations related to it. And then there's machine learning, which is using algorithms to look at data. So ChatGPT, for instance, is not very good at looking at massive financial data, but machine learning and algorithms can look at data, make predictions and recommendations. So there's a number of areas where AI is going to be used within financial processes. And just some examples of the applications that are being used for audit specifically. KPMG has Clara, EY has Helix, Deloitte has Argus, and then Oversight, the company I work for, has a continuous audit platform that uses AI to identify errors, misuse, and fraud in all of the spend processes in a company's financial systems. So again, these solutions are identifying risk in a way that humans can't. And here's some of the benefits. First off, doing an audit with full review of data, not just a sample, but looking at 100% of the data and able to give visibility into patterns, and again, even challenging assumptions. Improved audit efficiency because the computers can crunch the data much faster, greatly reducing audit times, greatly improving then finally when we look at the value, giving more value to your company and to your stakeholders, because you now can see things that you were not able to see before, supporting decision making and strategic planning. All of these are huge benefits both to you and to your company. So the benefits for using AI are clear. Now, when we look at spend programs across organizations today, we see that the APQC has said that for every 10,000 invoices processed, nearly 200 will result in duplicate or erroneous payments. And the ACFE says that for every 100 million in revenue, companies are losing about 5 million to fraud. So clearly, the problems within the financial process are still there. And in fact, this is just a beginning point when we look at the total exposure, when we're looking at fraud, and you see it more and more in the headlines, how you probably have gotten emails that from hackers and spammers trying to get you to pay things. Well, now they're getting even better with ChatGPT. So the language is getting better and the capabilities are stronger, and the financial risk, disbursements due to duplicates or wrong vendor paid are actually, you would think they'd be a thing of the past, but they're not. They're still present. And then compliance needs, the auditing organizations, the governmental entities such as the DOJ and SEC are actually increasing their scope and their audit, and a lot of organizations have been fined huge amounts of money. So not doing something in this world is not really an option. And really, existing controls give a false sense of security. There's ERP controls, but they're static. They don't dynamically deal with changing landscapes. Standard sample audits, they have some value, but again, you're just looking at a part and you don't see the bigger picture often. Even down in the bottom right, I talk about AP automation, which a lot of organizations are adding AP automation, which is greatly improving the efficiency at processing invoices. But at the same time, what we're seeing is that it's actually creating a lot of errors too, coding errors. And now it's happening faster. And keeping on top of that, you need like a system or a way to monitor those errors that are happening at very high speeds. So that's where artificial intelligence can come in. But to achieve the value, you have to change your thought, change your approach to how you're thinking. first acknowledging the limitations of existing controls, whether that's within your ERP or manual processes. And then most organizations that I've talked to, they're really being tasked to do more with less, right? The budgets are slimming for individuals, for labor. So how then can we apply technology, and really recognizing that AI technology isn't maybe we're past the point of a good idea. This is a must have within each organization. And, ultimately, AI will provide that better way of doing things. So identifying all risk with a proactive approach, monitoring 100% and not using static controls. So the question then is, okay, well, how do we get started on a project like this, or identifying where should I go in all of this AI world? Well, a few suggestions just for how you could get started. The first one is identify the goals that you have within your financial organization, your process, right? Whether they're operational controls or goals, financial goals, like what kinds of impacts do you want to have? Ultimately, what I would say is that this should be a cash positive is going to be obviously one of your goals, right? Doing more with less, providing actual value out. And then changing processes. How can you understand root causes? How can you perhaps do things more in the compliance world? So you should look and think about within your organization, what would be your goals for using artificial intelligence? And that's an important first step, so you know what to look for, what kinds of tools, what kinds of capabilities. The next step that I would recommend is identify the areas of finance to focus on. And spend is a really good one to look at first, because stopping the risk from happening. There's areas like travel and expense, purchase card payables, and also thinking about, well, who would be the groups within the organization who could be using this, right? Who are the stakeholders, whether it's the financial operations team, the internal audit or compliance, or best, maybe all three, right? So think about, first, what are your goals? And then two, what are the areas that you would like to focus? And maybe you just focus on one thing first, right? Maybe start with travel and expense, or maybe payables, or whatever area would make the most sense for your organization. So think about that. And then evaluate vendors and understand what their artificial intelligence capabilities are. How do they line up with your goals? How do they line up with the various processes you're looking at? What types of artificial intelligence do they utilize? And again, we've talked briefly about the capabilities of the different types of artificial intelligence. So for instance, there's a component that will be looking more at reading contracts or receipts. Those are deep learning capabilities within AI, and natural language processing, kind of like your chatbots and things like that. Machine learning is really needed for being able to look at where financial risk is, because the currently ChatGPT and its types of things, they aren't able to look at financial data. They're really good at text, not good at financial data. So you need something that provides a good machine learning basis. And then another area that's very helpful is having an expert system where there are different rules that can be configured, right? So There are some that are dynamic with deep learning and machine learning. And then you need to have some that will be based on configurable rules. And so being able to have a system that already has that, the knowledge and expert data captured, will speed your project ultimately, so that you can find good value and good return. Now, clearly, I work for for a company, Oversight, that gives you these kinds of capabilities, right? So leveraging artificial intelligence, automating that process of reviewing the financial data automatically, using artificial intelligence to identify risk. Now, one thing that I would say, it's important that when you're looking at a solution, that it doesn't just identify the risk, but also helps you resolve and track the resolution process. So all of that complete journey of audit, whether it's an operational team looking for risk, or an internal audit, or a compliance team, these steps are absolutely critical. So as we think then about where your organization is and what goals you have within your organization, how is it that you can use artificial intelligence, right, to give visibility into a deeper level of data, to uncover risks that you couldn't see before. Now some people, when one of the other things that when we're looking at the world of artificial intelligence, there's questions about, well, I've heard a lot about ChatGPT, but I'm concerned about the risk of putting that data out there. In fact, our company won't even let us use ChatGPT, right? There's data privacy concerns and security concerns. And so that's something that you should weigh into your analysis. And again, then there's different types of artificial intelligence that you need to be aware of. The ChatGPTs are very helpful for conversational discussions. In fact, helping understand what somebody is saying and translating that so that the computer can take action on it. And then machine learning, having the capability to understand all of the data. So you'll need to have a solution as you're looking at this, one that has all of the components that are needed. Two, has the ability to do this in a safe way, right? So that your data isn't leaking out, that none of your privacy, they're from a GDPR or other industry secrets. You don't want any of your internal intellectual property just being out there, but the good news is that these large language models and artificial intelligence and machine learning are being developed also in private zones and in areas where it's not, your data isn't at risk. So I would look for those capabilities and ask those kinds of questions as you're looking at this. And the other big question that people have is, well, I've heard that this generative AI, ChatGPT, has a lot of hallucinations. It makes things up, right? And yes, that is very true. But again, that's for the one area of the generative AI. There's other types of AI, but all of them still are requiring a human to review and inspect. Now, they'll do a lot of the work for you, which is great. But people have asked, but isn't AI going to take away my job? And the answer to that is no. If you learn to use the tool. Because just like in the old days, people moved from calculators to Excel, and people who could master Excel uh, moved ahead in their career, and that displaced the use of adding machines. If you're only doing adding machines, yeah, your job is probably at risk. But then if you've learned Excel, you can do things and be very useful within your organization. Now, in the same way, learning to use artificial intelligence is the next horizon. And that's where I would recommend that as an individual, you really take the opportunity to start learning to use these various tools. The first time I used ChatGPT, my son had actually started he was sending an email to a professor in college, and he decided to just run that email through ChatGPT and make it sound more professional. And it returned something back that was like, wow, this is great. And then he sent that off. And then I was thinking about, wow, how could I use it? And so I asked it to give me an outline for doing a presentation. And it produced an outline that was, wow, it was like pretty good. Now I needed to go and massage it some. So I recommend that you start playing with the tools and that you start investigating and that you start to learn to use them, and then identify how can you bring AI into your finance organization so that you can become a leader, that you can become a thought leader. And I know that some organizations, the finance teams are being tasked with adding AI as a strategic initiative. So this is a great opportunity to begin to learn and to begin to think about and talk about some of these capabilities. And ultimately, what I'd like to do is now just take some time where we can field some questions and see if there's any questions out there, and give you an opportunity to ask questions and see if we can learn together.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nathaniel, for such an insightful session. And we could go ahead and review some of the questions that came through. This
Great.
first question asks, with ChatGPT, it learns your knowledge, but what happens when it is fed incorrect knowledge? Can it distinguish between good and bad information?
That is an excellent question. And the answer is, unfortunately, no. But the good part of that is that it's fed lots and lots of information. And at least for right now, if you've played with it before, because most of the information that it's been fed is good, it still has a generally good understanding and the results are good, but not always. But that's where there's the capability of taking a ChatGPT or similar large language model, and you control more of what gets fed to it. And that's where the value can be constrained. And there's the whole question of how do you prevent those errors? How do you get it smarter? And that's something that is being worked on right now. But that's an excellent question. And that is one of the risks really in the world of AI and generative AI especially.
Great, thank you. This next question, some of the things described as to what machine learning can do,
Yes.
this attendee says it sounds like some stuff that software can also do. Is there a difference?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so software versus machine learning. They're similar, but here's the difference. So software is you go and create basically the rules. You're saying, okay, I want the software to do this and then this. So it's procedural, and the humans need to know what the answer is. So machine learning, by contrast, takes data, and typically it needs to have data that is scored. So it's, for instance, told, is this a problem or is it not? In the world of graphics and images, for instance, it can look to see, is this a cat or is this a dog? Is this a person? And it does that not by individuals going in and saying, well, a dog has ears, it's like, well, so do cats, and so you'd have to, if you were writing a program, you'd have to write all of these lots of different specific rules. But with machine learning, it is fed lots of data, and then and that data is scored as, for instance, in the world of audit, it would be scored as, this is a problem or it's not, and what type of problem. And then as it reviews all of that data, it will learn to look for what's the problems based on hundreds, if not thousands, of data points that would be difficult for the humans to identify those patterns necessarily. So we have found that machine learning strengthens, if you use it in combination with rules, it strengthens the outcome to provide a risk identification that is stronger than what the rules can do by themselves. But when you use those two in combination, you get the best of both worlds. So hopefully that was helpful.
Excellent, thank you. And this next question, are you able to share what you think the future of finance teams will look like, especially with AI processes in place?
Yeah, good question. And people are worried about, am I right? This comes back to the question of, am I going to lose my job? And the answer is no. I've seen a McKinsey report out there that I thought was really interesting, and I agree with their overall stance, which is basically the jobs are going to change somewhat, but the jobs are still going to be there, right? We need somebody who will be reviewing. So, for instance, the jobs previously might have been data collection and crunching in Excel and doing all of this work. And then after doing that, you identify some potential risk and then you take action. Well, in the new world, those beginning steps of gathering the data, crunching and identifying what the risks are, that's going to be automated, but it still is going to take a human to then review the items that are specified. Now, some of them are going to be clear. The machine will learn and be able to automate and take care of certain things, but there are going to be certain things that are a little more in the gray, and it's going to take a human to understand, is that a problem or not, for one. And also it's going to be the need for humans to review, for instance, the output of generative AI. And does this make sense, right? Is it, so there, the humans will need to be steering and making more strategic decisions. So really, for finance professionals, they will be using the tools, guiding them, making sure that decisions that they're making are accurate and sound. So again, the need will be growing for this level of management to control and test and approve and making strategic decisions. And the great news is that, well, the AI will help with those strategic decisions, but it won't make them for you. That's where a human will need to look at all of the data points, all of the suggestions, and then understand in the context of your company, where do you want to make the step. So again, the management layer, the review layer, ultimately, I think about it as elevating the role of the auditors or of the finance professional, right? Their jobs are now going to be transformed into ensuring more strategic thoughts and plotting the course and using these tools, just like, Excel doesn't do your job for you, but it sure helps you understand data a lot more and more sophisticated ways than you could with just paper and some sort of a ledger in the past, right? So similar, it's now moving to the next step with artificial intelligence. So I expect that within financial organizations that there will be AI infused into many components of the process, but there will still be humans who will be steering, validating, and making strategic decisions.
Great. Thank you so much, Nathaniel. That is all the time we have for questions, but thank you again for such an insightful and incredible thought leadership. I also wanted to thank everyone else who joined us today for this session. This session, along with all of today's content, will be made available on demand following this event. Thank you again, Nathaniel.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.